All right, testing the microphone. Check 1, 2. How we doing? Sounds pretty good. Let me turn everything on. I might turn myself up a tiny bit. All right. Everything working? Everything good? It appears that way. Cool. Hello and welcome to another live stream, another Tuesday afternoon live stream. This is a little bit of an experiment today for multiple reasons. Reason number 1, we are an hour earlier than I normally am. Normally I'm doing 5 to 7 Mountain Time. I'm trying 4 to 6 today to see how that goes, see how it feels. So that's experiment number 1. And experiment number 2 is going to be today we're gonna, as you can see, I got the double camera action going on with the Rolly block, which is this guy right here. This is an MPE enabled MIDI controller, MIDI polyphonic expression, which allows, it's basically the same thing as MIDI, but it does a bunch of other really cool stuff too. So I got this right around when Live 11 came out, because Live 11 can now send and receive MPE information, which is pretty cool. And I got it and I played around with it a little bit. I opened it up, plugged it in, installed some things, made sure it worked. It worked. And I never really did a whole lot more than that. So today, if you're not familiar with the format of the Tuesday afternoon streams, it's basically like, I consider it kind of like office hours, where I will be here hanging out, doing something music or production related, and anybody is welcome to pop into chat and ask any questions, either about the thing that I'm talking about, the thing that I'm kind of going over, or about anything that you want, as long as it's tangentially related to music production. So if you are out there and you are either watching this video later on, or you are joining us live and you have any questions, you can feel free to put those in the chat. And don't feel like you're going to interrupt me, because, like I said, I'm mostly here right now just to explore, hang out, talk about music. So as I mentioned, I mostly want to really kind of wrap my head around not just MPE, but also the block and how it works. It seems like there's a few different software things involved in making sure all the MPE stuff works. So I want to make sure I understand all that stuff. And if you are interested in learning about MIDI polyphonic expression, we're going to learn about it together, because I have not spent a lot of time with this. What's up, Janef? How are you doing today? Glad you can make it. So we're going to be playing around with this guy right here. It's a MIDI controller. One of the cool things about MPE that I can tell you already is that it's going to have all of the basics of a MIDI controller. So you're going to get things like note on and off. You're going to get MIDI, pitch. You're going to get velocity, all that kind of stuff. However, it has 2 or 3 extra things that it does, and on top of the basics of what MIDI does. Number 1, you have you can shift things. So there's basically a 2 axes here. So if I play a note, I get different sounds as I go one direction, and I get different sounds as I go another direction. So currently the way it's set up, and we can program this and we can change this, is that as I go left and right, it does a pitch bend. And as I go up and down, it's going to add like a tremolo kind of thing. Or like a little bit of like a detune kind of thing. But we can change all that, and we can change how it works. So we're going to be exploring that, how it works with the devices in live. Things like Wavetable and Simpler and Sampler are already MPE enabled, but also it comes with its own software. So that's what I have here. This is the Rolly Studio player. This has a bunch of presets built into it. I need to download and install some more of them, but we can use this controller and already get things built in to behave certain ways. So I want to explore this some more. I played around with it a little bit, but I'm like not super familiar with it, as well as using this to play around with just stuff inside of Live. On top of that, there is this guy right here. This is the Rolly dashboard, and this is something that I played around with a little bit before, but it has, I think, a lot of really cool potential, and I need to figure out exactly the relationship between all the things you can do in the dashboard here, which has like presets built into it. So I can have like an Ableton Live preset. I can play, games on it. I have a grid control. So here, oops, I don't know what that did. That one started recording for some reason. But we can customize a bunch of stuff using the dashboard, which is a whole other thing that I will probably be getting into quite a bit. I believe also we can do things like if we are in note mode, we can set that to be MPE, and we can also edit things, and we can do things like put it in key. So if you are using the push or familiar with the in key mode and the push, we can do the same thing here. We got octave controls, we got transpose controls, we got MIDI channels, we got transposition, and then we got built-in keys. So say I want to be in a minor key. It has chord modes built into it. There's a glide lock. There you go, hide mode. So this should behave like the in key mode in the push. And is there, how do you change the root note here? Or minor mode, transpose. I guess you could just use the transpose to do that. I don't know. We're going to figure all this stuff out today, hopefully, and play around with it. We got a multi-channel mode and we got a single channel mode. Interesting. Cool. I want MPE, and I want MPE to be key locked. Cool. All right. That's all stuff in there. This thing can do a lot more. We'll come back to that. So we got this in key mode, which is what I wanted. And I can also switch the modes here, if I'm not mistaken. So there's like a XY controller. It's a 4-pad mode, a 16-pad mode. And then we're back to our kind of in key mode. So it has a bunch of modes built into it. It's pretty cool, and we can switch between those. And before we get into the third-party plugin version, I do want to test this out with something like Wavetable, because Wavetable is one of the instruments in Live that is MPE responsive, just built in there. Also, I do want to mention, I mentioned this a little earlier, but in case of people joining us, right now I'm just going to be kind of rambling about the Rolly block and MPE. But if you have questions or topics or things you want to talk about, feel free to toss that in the chat whenever you want. So here we go, this going to Wavetable. You can see by default, Wavetable will not respond to the MPE coming out of the block. So we need to go to the MPE tab, and here we can see we have note pitch bend, we have slide, and we have pressure. And you'll see that as I move my finger around here, we're getting the pressure, but we're not getting the note pitch bend or the slide, which means we might need to tweak something to make that turn on. Let's check our preferences first. And this is probably why. So on the input from our block, we need to make sure MPE is turned on. That's probably why it's missing there. So Jeanette has a question about dropping a sampler in, or sample into simpler or slash sampler. How do you stop it from time stretching? Which is a fantastic question. So if we have simpler right here, and we take like a percussive loop and toss it in here. Take something like this and we toss it in here. So if you play the MIDI note C3, it'll play the original recorded pitch, so it won't speed it up and it won't slow it down. Okay. Like that. But naturally, as you play a higher note or a lower note, it's going to speed it up. Or if you play a lower note, it'll slow it down. So if you want it to maintain its speed, you hit the warp button right here. When warp is turned on, as you pitch it up or pitch it down, it maintains speed. And you might want to sometimes switch it off of beats mode, put it on like complex or something like that. So if you want to be able to change the pitch without changing the speed, make sure warp is turned on. If warp is turned off, it'll speed it up or slow it down. So depending on what you're going for here, one of those two options, either warp off will speed up or slow down as you change pitch, or warp turned on will maintain timing, but it might sound a little weird if you pitch it up or pitch it down. If you are using sampler, it does not have a warp option. So inside sampler, and this is one of the key differences between simpler and sampler. Inside sampler, it will always speed up and slow down, depending on which pitch you play. So if you are wanting it to kind of like maintain tempo, then simpler is going to be your better option. If you don't care so much, sampler is going to do better at that. Does that make sense? Hopefully. It used to be in the old days that everything that simpler could do, sampler just did better. And then like midway through either Live 9 or Live 10, they updated simpler. So it does warping, which sampler can't do. It also does like the slice mode that sampler can't do. So now there's a few reasons to use simpler over sampler. But yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that answers your question. But that's a fantastic question. All right, so jumping back to the block here. So what I had to do is go into the preferences, make sure MPE was turned on from the input from the Rolly block. Now that I've done that, hopefully, I'm gonna filter this a little bit so it's not quite as annoying. Cool, so we can see we're getting channel pressure. So we get polyphonic aftertouch, and we get the slide control. So as I move this, as I move it up and down, it's gonna be adjusting the slide. So this slide can go anywhere I want. You can map to anything, just like you can with your matrix page here or your MIDI page here. So if I want that slide to go to my filter frequency, I could turn that up. So that way if I play a note, as I move my finger up and down, it's going to change the filter. Something like that. Or I could do that to like a wavetable position. That could be kind of cool. So I could have the slide do both of these at the same time, which is pretty sweet. So I have this up and down motion, which is going to be my slide motion. And then it looks like note pitch bend is when I go left and right, but it's very, very subtle. So this might be the kind of thing I have to go back into the dashboard here and figure out how to make that more sensitive. Glide rate, CCs, transpose, pitch bend range, MPE zone, lower zone, MIDI channels, sensitivity, strike, glide, lift, pressure, fixed velocity value. Interesting. I'm not seeing anything that allows me to play with the pitch bend so much. Play with the glide rate, that's kind of cool. Go back to minor scale. Glide tracking, pressure tracking. Interesting. Well, I'm not seeing anything in there that allows me to like play with the pitch bend at all. But I can switch, say, one of these to pressure. So maybe I will have filter frequency on my moving up and down, and I'll have my wavetable position on my pressure. So now if I play this one note, as I press it harder and softer, it moves it up and down that way. And then as I move it left and right, it also changes it there. So that's kind of the cool thing about MPE is we basically get like more expressiveness out of your MIDI controller to let you do more things with it, which is pretty sweet. Let me actually pitch this guy down an octave because I think that might even sound cooler. Make this guy monophonic. Maybe put a little bit of glide on here anyway. Hey Bill, how's it going? So I was also very excited about MPE. I was talking about this at the start of the stream when Live 11 was announced and they said MPE is gonna be part of it. And so I went out and got the Rolly block and I played around with it for a little bit and it was cool. It was fun, but it never really translated to like it didn't fit into my workflow. I was just so used to just using the push and using MIDI just to like sit down and write stuff. And so I think this is part of the whole point of doing me doing this stream right now is that I want to get more comfortable with MPE. I want to like really dive into it and get used to using it and creating presets with it and patches with it. And then I think it'll be more useful. But it does seem like sometimes with MPE, it's a lot of work to set up with not a lot of immediate results. So I definitely kind of feel you on that. It definitely does have this like kind of like haunted house kind of vibe to it for sure. For a lot of the patches I've made with it, I can definitely see that. But yeah, I think it's the kind of thing that you've got to spend a lot of time with to really kind of know the ins and outs of it and when it's going to be really useful in enhancing whatever it is you're making. But yeah, I totally feel you on that. It's like in situations like this where like, that's cool. I mean, I could do pressure on the push, and the slide is cool for again, like things like filter frequency. But I think that I need to spend more time with it to really feel like I'm super comfortable with it. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. But definitely feel free to let me know if you have any more questions about MPE and what you can do with it, because this is very much a learning experience for me as well. So yeah, so that's kind of some of the basics of how you can use MPE on a live device. But I think really where MPE gets interesting is using plugins that are specifically designed for MPE. Namely, I'm using the two that came with the block, which is the Rolly Studio and the Rolly Drums. So over here, this is kind of designed to receive MPE, so it's kind of built to do a bunch of stuff, as we kind of heard before a little bit. So I'm going to test this out and play around with some of the settings and see what I can do. Okay, this has the built-in key mode right here, which is handy, but it doesn't lock them. You can turn on arpeggiator. And right now, it's getting the pitch bend in there, but not the slide as much. Smart chords. Oh, that's cool. It's cool. It's got built-in arpeggiator. It's got some audio effects. And I want to start mapping things to other things. It's got a strum in here. That's sweet. You put chords in there. The built-in swing and arpeggiator. Those are all pretty sweet. And then here we have like a library of a bunch of presets. Oh, and then now this becomes an amount control, effect control. tremolo, release, XY controller. That's super cool. Too many modes now. I think I need like 3 blocks to really make this super cool. All right, what do we got? Too many effects going on now. How did I get all the distortion on there? So many modes in here. All right, let's try a different preset. It's kind of pretty. And then it keeps the chords, it keeps the arpeggiator, it has the audio effect thing over here. You can turn that on and off there. I want to be able to see how everything is being mapped, how everything is responding to the pressure and all that kind of stuff. That's just a bunch of sounds. Interesting. I like the arpeggiator quite a bit. You can do some really cool stuff. We got right here, we got octave controls. Don't mind that at all. But yeah, the main thing I'm missing here that I need to figure out is how do you assign pressure and slide to different parameters? Because they're already assigned. I just need to figure out where. I just need to figure out whether those are assigned and how you assign those and how you change those. I would assume it would be these guys, but these are just macros. So Jeanette was asking, is there a way I can make Ableton snap to my MIDI notes in scale? I'm working in C minor, and I want every note to press on my keyboard to be in that key. So yes, and yes, there is. There's a couple easy ways to do it, and there's a couple harder ways to do it. So if you are using a Live 11, if you just make a MIDI clip, there's the scale button right here. You pick your scale. So say you want to be in E minor, and then it'll light up all the notes that are in E minor. And then if you only want to be playing those, you can hit the scale button right here, and it will only allow you to place those in the clip. However, this does not restrict MIDI coming from your MIDI controller, unless you have a push. If you have the push, you just play the push, and then that works. So the way that I've found to do this, if you want to be, like, say you have like a piano MIDI controller in front of you, and you want to make it so like that only plays in key, you can do so by building a really complicated MIDI effect rack. It's one of my favorite uses of a MIDI effect rack. And do I still have that in I might have a preset that has all of it. Yeah, here it is. I can show you how to build this if you would like. All right. That's the chord on and off. This might not be the right device. Let's try this one. No, this just adds chords. All right. We're gonna have to build this from scratch just so we can do this. So the way you do this is you want to start with the MIDI effect track. This might take a minute, so Janef, I hope you're ready for this. Yeah, from your laptop keyboard, something like that. MIDI effect rack. Let's see if I can remember how to do this on the fly, because I made this a long time ago. And what we want is we want to set it up so that, for example, you could only play the white keys on your computer keyboard or your MIDI controller, and it would automatically make those in key, right? That's the easy way to do it. And that way you just play like the middle row, the ASDF row, and then you're good. So what you need to do is you need to figure out what steps are in the key you want to play. So for example, if you are in the minor key, you want to play it, it's a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. Is that right? Did I add an extra half step in there? No, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. So that way, when you're only playing the white keys in the piano, it pitches things up and down for you automatically. So what we're going to do, oh god, let's see if I remember how to do all this, is we're going to be using a bunch of pitch controls here, a bunch of pitch MIDI effects. So we're going to take those and we're going to duplicate those. Is this how I did this? Man, it's been such a long time. Yeah, I think this will work. All right, bear with me here. So so we're going to be using, like I said, a bunch of pitch controls, and we are going to be using the key selector over here. So the key selector makes it so when you play a certain MIDI note, it sends it to specifically that value. So let's do something like this. So if I do something like this, now when I play the MIDI note C2, it'll send it specifically to this chain. Let's take all these guys and turn them, get rid of them. So if I play C2, this is sending a MIDI note right here, and then that's being sent to this pitch device, and then through here. So let's set this up by default to start with C minor. So C minor, we don't actually need to do anything. So we can leave this alone if we're playing the C note. Then the next note right here, let's just say we're just doing all the white notes to piano. This one's also fine. So this is going to be taking C note and keeping that there. This is taking D note, keeping that there. Then what we need is when you play the E note, we actually need to just go down a semitone. So we're going to take this pitch control and pitch it down one. So that stays the same because that's our first whole step. Now when I play the E note, it actually plays the D sharp note. So we're basically, oh wait, why am I doing it this way? There's a much easier way to do this. This is one way to do it, if you wanted to. I'll show you the easier way in a second. And then you do this for every single note, any single one of your white notes. So the F note needs to go up one semitone because we're going a whole step, and then a half step, and then a whole step. Actually, now I can stay there. So you could go through and do this for a bunch of different notes, and that'll allow you to pitch things up and down, and that'll totally work. The easier way to do this, that I just remembered, is there's the scale device. The scale device is super weird. Visually, it doesn't make a lot of sense, and functionally, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But once you know kind of the basics, you're pretty much good to go. So on the scale device, we basically have an incoming note here on our y-axis and an outgoing note on our x-axis. So if you only wanted to play things in the major scale, you could once again put in that pattern for the major scale. So basically this is C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, etc. Just going up. So if this is C, when we play a C, this will output a C. But if we move this here, when I play C, it's going to output C sharp. Or here, in this case, it's going to output D sharp or E. So it basically takes an incoming MIDI note and then outputs a different MIDI note. So what we're going to do is anything that's outside of our key, in this case, C major, we're going to transpose. So this is C sharp. This is outside of C major. So if I click this down here, now if I hit C, it plays C. Or if I play C sharp, it plays C sharp. So same thing here. We're going to take D sharp, make that D, take F sharp, make that play F, etc., etc. So now anytime I hit one of the black notes on the piano, it rounds it down. So now everything I play will be in C major because I'm using the pattern for the major scale: whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, like that. Now, say you don't want to be in C major. Say you want to be in F major. All you need to do is take this bass control once we have the pattern for the major scale and switch it over to F. Now, any MIDI note you pass through here will automatically be in F major, like that. No matter what I do. So that works to be in any one of the major scales. If you want to do any of the minor scales, you could either plug in the minor scale, or you could go into the preset for the minor scale. So in a second, this will show the preset for the minor scale. And then now if I switch this, now everything you play will be in G minor. Yeah, each one blocks a half step. So just think about like, this is C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, etc. Actually, this is G now. G sharp, E, F, or you get what I mean. Yeah, so each block is a step or a half step. So you can use this, and then automatically you'll be in that particular key. Keep in mind though, if you were to take something you wrote in like, F major, and you want to transpose it to G major, this would transpose it and make it so that every single note coming out of this would be in G major. However, not necessarily going to sound good. Yeah, each one of the blue boxes is a note, essentially. So yeah, so you put in the pattern, whether you want to be major scale, minor scale, it has presets for all of those things. And then you set your root note here to be whatever you want, and then that forces you to be in key. It's not my favorite solution here, but it does work, and it does force you to be in key. Hello, Spencer. How are you doing today? I am explaining a little something about the scale device to Janef, and then I will get back to playing around with my rolly block here. Does it make sense, Janef? Hopefully. But that's probably the easiest way to force things to be in key if you want them to be that way. Other than that, you can make a really fancy MIDI effect that will do it a little better, but it's a lot more work. Cool. Yeah, that's a good question. It can be a little tricky if you don't have either Live 11 or a push or something like that. There's a bunch of MIDI controllers that now have like built-in scale modes. So the scale device is much less efficient and much more tricky to use, but it will ultimately it'll get the job done. It'll work for you. All right. So we were getting in here and trying to figure out how to get the block to respond to the slide controls and all that kind of stuff. So there's the effects built in here. So we have filter here. Okay, we can choose the effect there for distortion and all that kind of stuff. We got reverb controls here. Interesting. That actually sounds pretty good. I'm not kind of feeling that. Oh, and then we have multi effects there. Ooh, I like this. So we can have different effects there, but I can't play both the effects and the notes at the same time. So I might just need to record some MIDI first, just kind of see how that goes. Cool, that should be fine. Let's get this out of here, let's turn scale mode off. Just do 4 bars of this. So now, if I switch through the modes here, this is the 3 macros. That's the delay control. This is the arpeggiator, I think. And those are the chords. This is the arpeggiator. And this is the 4 effects. That's pretty cool. I think there's a lot of potential there. I think there's a lot of things you can do there. But unfortunately, I can't control multiple things at the same time, which is, at least not yet. That's the big thing I'm missing. If I could play some notes and also have control of those effects at the same time, I think that would be super cool. So this area here is our macros, it seems like. And here's, okay, so I either have the 3 macros individually, or I have an XY controller where I can control mod, speed, and in this case, tone mod at the same time. Yeah, I think my favorite thing about this so far is the arpeggiator. The arpeggiator is super cool. And it seems like you can do a lot of stuff built into it. That's assigning that there, turn it on off there, chords there, and D minor. Let's switch scales a little bit. I think it's a pretty cool plugin. I think there's a lot of cool stuff you can do here. But I'm still wanting more customization with all the different MPE settings and what they control at any given time. It mostly just seems like this is a really kind of complex just XY controller, which is cool. What's up, love? How you doing today? Yeah, so we are exploring a little bit of MPE, a little bit of the Rolly block, and kind of seeing what it can do inside of Live. Right now we're testing it out with the Rolly Studio Player, which is this plugin right here. That so far I feel pretty okay about. I'm not in love with it yet. I think I need to play around with it some more and really kind of figure it out and kind of see what I like the most about it. But I think this is a cool patch so far. Wondering if there's any other big settings that I'm missing. This is just the Explorer for different presets. Cool, I might leave that there for a little bit. Yeah, I wanted to get the Rolly keyboard too, but it's been sold out for a long time. It's like comes in stock and then sells out basically instantly again. Let me try. Let's try the drums a little bit and see what happens. That is the wrong patch. Let's try this over here. You get a little beat repeat as you go up and down. Man, the layout for their drums is weird. All right, we're gonna go to the 808 one. Not in love with these drum sounds to begin with. So you can select them here. So you just get three essentially macros for each one of your sounds, it looks like, which is not great for me. Oh, they can. Cool, and then we have built-in audio effects here. These on a per sound basis? Are they for the whole thing? So I'm just kind of, I haven't played around with these pretty much at all, so I'm just exploring and screwing around. So if you guys have any questions related to MPE, go ahead and toss them in the chat. I'm learning a lot myself right now. Or if you have questions about anything else, you can also feel free to toss that in the chat as well. Also, if you're enjoying this at all, feel free to hit the like button or any one of those buttons down there. These are, I believe they're samples for the most part. Like I think each one of these is a sample that just has a couple basic controls for each one. Yeah, this is the only MPE controller that I have. I got it specifically because it's nice and portable and small and seems kind of cool. I like the surface, but sometimes it feels like the surface doesn't register. Like if I'm moving up and down, maybe I just need to get used to it. But yeah, these seem like samples. So I'm assuming I can probably grab those samples somewhere else. One of these got crazy long decay. Yeah, I really want to like take advantage of a lot of like the MPE controls here, but it seems like it's the actual softwares themselves, they respond to the MPE, but they're not built around like just maximizing the amount of stuff you can do with the MPE controls. So here, then we have, oh, this allows you to actually select, which is kind of cool. This is the macro controls. One of the cool things that I like about it so far is that you can do everything from the block. So like as you switch between different modes, this is my macro controls, and this allows me to like pick a sample, and then here I can like go into the macro control just for that one sample. So if I like recorded something and then was playing it in here, I could tweak all the settings right in here. And the same thing is true for the studio, it looked like. And then this has got to be the effects, which are turned off. So I got to turn the effects on. So we have XY controllers for our 4 different effects. Play with those there. So I need to record something. That's my biggest issue so far, is that I feel like this is really designed to work with either the C-board or another block. And so you could have one block that is doing, you're playing live, and then the other block that is your effects or your macros or your whatever. So that's my only real kind of issue that I have so far, is that I want to be able to play notes while I'm also tweaking effects at the same time. So as of right now, with just one block, I've got to record the MIDI, and then get into all the effects and stuff I want to be doing. But I'm starting to get the hang of like the different modes and how you relate them together. Yeah, so you can definitely do both MIDI and MPE directly from the block into live. I was playing around with the plugins because they have a lot of extra features built into it. But if I did this earlier, if you have something like Wavetable can respond to MPE and MIDI. So if I just want to play something here, so something like that, this sends in here, and then you can have the MPE. We could have the slide go to wavetable position. So I could play this and do something like this. So you can definitely, you don't need to use the Rolly software to get the most out of this, out of the block, or I'm assuming the C-board as well. Janef, no worries, you can ask questions about whatever you want. But these are the AKG K712s. I've had them for about 8 or 9 years probably, and I really like them. I can't honestly speak about a lot of the other AKG stuff. I've heard some bad things about some of the other models of headphones, but the K712s, which are these ones I've had forever, and I like them, and I'm probably not going to replace them anytime soon. But some of the cheaper AKG stuff is I've heard mixed things about. Yeah, I haven't done any. They're close back. I haven't done any MPE with Max for Live stuff. I think that could be super cool. I haven't even looked into what kind of objects they have for MPE, but I know that does exist. I do this. Interesting. Interesting. All right, so the no pitch bend does work just fine. It's just, it doesn't register a lot here. So you'll notice that when I move the slide up and down, you can see the value of the slide going way up and down. And when I move left and right for the pitch bend just barely moves. But if you map it, you actually will hear it. It works just fine. If we do both of these, which is kind of cool. Let's also map this to filter frequency. Let's do pressure to filter frequency. Turn this down. Pitch this down an octave. Yeah, really kind of figuring out the best way to map all the MPE stuff to the parameters I use all the time and being able to like play those, I think is gonna take a while. As far as the pitch bend thing, I think the pitch bend thing is because I have the on this guy, I have the pitch bend turned up to 48 here. It has something to do with that, I think. That this has a really wide pitch bend range. So when I move it from here to here, I'm not moving it very far, but I'm still getting something. So I'm assuming if I played with this, it would change it a little bit. And then if you want to do in-key, so if you want to do an in-key mode using the Rolly software, you do that in the plugin. But if you want to do like an in-key mode just going directly into live, you can do so right here. You hit this button. So now this is in key mode. And so now I can slide it around and make sure I always stay in key. I do wish this was a little bigger. I think that's my other big issue here. Sometimes this feels like not a lot of space to work with when it comes to like sliding things around. Yeah, the other thing that I really need to figure out here is I like the ability to map all the MPE settings wherever I want on something like Wavetable, and I have not found that as an option over in the Rolly Studio plugin. Yeah, it's pretty small. It's like, you know, it very much is smaller than my hand. I kind of wish it was a little bit bigger. That's still the wrong one. Let me switch this over. The arpeggiator here is great though. I love the arpeggiator. That's like the big winner of all of the Rolly stuff I've found so far. I'm gonna turn that down a little bit. It's getting loud. You can change octave range there. I still think the keyboard's cool. I really do think if I had like it's weird. It makes me want to buy a second block. I think having two of these guys connected together is probably the sweet spot, or having this plus a keyboard is probably the way to do it. I think just having one feels a little bit like I can only do one thing at a time. And that one thing is cool, but it's not really like, doesn't give me tons of options for playing things and tweaking things all at the same time. Now there's got to be like a mappings control in here somewhere. Probably should have read the manual before I streamed with this. Yeah, I probably won't buy a second one, at least not for a while. But it does seem like they're trying to, they have the whole connectivity thing. Like they have little things on the side where you can connect them together, which is kind of cool. But it seems like you kind of need more than one to really get the most out of it. There's some MIDI settings there. Yeah, that's my big issue right now, is not being able to custom map, besides the only being able to do one thing at a time, not being able to custom map the XY kind of controller to control different things at different times. It's kind of, it seems like it's kind of built in, like the slide does a thing, and there's not a way to change that. That cancels any health notes. Arpeggiator here. I'm gonna start a new one just because I like that sound and I'm gonna keep that. That's the wrong one. Yeah, I do feel like some of the marketing is a little bit misleading in terms of what it can do and how it's kind of built. Just kind of the way I felt before. But let's play around some presets and kind of see what they got in here. Keep doing that. So use the push, which automatically switches channels with you. I think it does do some like pretty expressive things though. I think some of these presets are kind of designed in a way that you can actually get some pretty cool sounds. Out of just playing some things. So I think that's kind of one of the good selling points about it. And I think a lot of these presets are not like all great, but they're good for kind of screwing around on. Someone was in here earlier saying that they just got haunted house music out of it, which like when you listen to stuff like this, you could definitely like make really good haunted house music out of it. Let's do MP1. So yeah, let's get more MP1s in here. Organic harp. Yeah, the presets are like really responsive. Like they're really velocity responsive and pressure responsive. Don't like that one. I have not tried MIDI mapping with it yet. That's actually like, we could MIDI map like this XY controller or something like that. Let's try that with wavetable over here. So if we switch modes, this is still sending a note, but I wonder if we turn that off and turn this on, how this would work. Interesting. All right, so pitch bend goes that way. Okay, there we go. A little tricky to map, but now I can move filter frequency this way and come on. Why did it stop working? It was working a second ago. Let's get out of here and get back in. Cool. Great display of what the C block can do. Unmap it and remap it probably. That's gonna be pitch bend. It's gonna be CC74. So it works kind of. It's not super smooth for MIDI mapping. Yeah, that's unfortunate. It kind of works, but not really. It's pretty pressure responsive. I think what I'm noticing is that as I'm doing the X and Y motions, as I'm moving like up and down a little bit and left and right a little bit, sometimes my finger like gets stuck a little bit, and so it doesn't get this like quite a smooth response, and maybe I just need to like go softer or get used to it a little bit. But it's definitely pressure sensitive. You can definitely see like the colors change on it as you like hit it. And it definitely responds to your motion moving up and down and left and right, but it's not super smooth. At least not smooth in the way I want it to be. Which is silky smooth is what I'm looking for here to do this kind of thing. Like if I just do that, you can see it's kind of jumping a little bit. And that's not good. I don't think this is really kind of designed for MIDI mapping like this, but even then it should still move pretty smooth. So that's good to know. Can I do this? Channel 15 pitch bend. Channel 16 pitch bend. Interesting. All right. I'm going to take this and put this in no scaling mode. Yeah, it really struggles with MIDI mapping, it seems like. Which is unfortunate. Like, yeah, it's like it's getting a signal and it's moving, but it's not doing a whole lot. So the poor grades on that side of things for MIDI mapping. Any other modes in here I should check out? 16 pads. Or just mapping notes. I map that there. And that there. Yeah, using it for buttons works okay. But I'm unimpressed by the MIDI mapping. I think it works better when it's sending MPE to something that responds to MPE. And like in that case, super smooth. But MIDI mapping it seems to have issues with. Back in here. Cool, because I I do not know a lot about the rolly block. I'm learning all of this stuff kind of as you do too. So I'm glad it's useful for you because I think there's a lot of cool stuff this can do. I haven't really played around with the live mode. There's the melodics mode. So this mode, I think we get clip launches and things like that. I might need to set this up as a control service. That also appears not to work. I don't know why I have that twice. Let's turn that off. So I believe this mode is supposed to control session view, where I can like launch clips and things, but this appears to not be working right now. Let's double check to make sure I didn't miss anything over here in the dashboard. So unable to live control, got that going. Play mode, all this stuff, transposition, scale mode, all the same kind of stuff. Yeah, not sure what I'm missing here. I'm gonna turn the push off just in case that's screwing with it. Yeah, live mode appears to be not working, but it's probably my fault because I did not read the manual. Going back to no mode because this one at least works. There were not any drivers that I had to install, but I did have to install 4 software programs, I think. Yeah, just the software program. So it's the dashboard, which is this guy here, which allows you to like select different modes and edit those modes, as well as update and things like that. And then there's the connect, which exists kind of behind my head. You might be able to see it a little bit. This is kind of running in the background, and you can download things here, and you can update things here, and you can buy more sounds and packs and stuff like that, and install things. And then there's the 2 synthesizers that come with it, or the 2 plugins that come with it. So there's the Studio, which is the one for playing instruments. Where's my plugins? There's the Studio, which is this guy, which is just the plugin. And then there's the Drum Studio. There's the Studio Player and the Studio Drums. So it's 2 plugins and 2 softwares to kind of make everything work. And if I'm not mistaken, in fact, I know for a fact, both of the plugins, you can run them as standalone. So you can just run them on their own. And I think you might get some extra bonus features if you run them by themselves. I haven't tried it out yet, but I know you can run them as just on their own, separate kind of thing. That's not going to work because my computer hates me, but you can run it as its own separate thing. Yeah. There's the drum studio. I don't want that. I want this guy. See, I'm gonna play with a few more of these presets, see if there's anything cool I can make. I like the chord mode. The chord mode seems really cool. What's up, Stan? How are you doing today? Yeah, you can definitely get some like pretty expressive stuff with this pretty easily. It's kind of nice. Yeah, I think this is the kind of sound that the Rolly stuff really excels at. These kind of like pad, motion, movement kind of things. And we can play with the chords here and like do some, and like make each chord, like, so the smart chords thing makes it so when I play one note, it plays the chord, right? So I play one note, it's playing that D minor chord. And you can even see down here, this kind of indicates all the different notes that are being played. So if I turn this off, I play one note, we just get that one note. But if I turn the smart chord on, it has the key set right here, so we're in D minor. So when I play one note, it plays my D minor chord for me. I play my G chord, here's my G minor, which is pretty awesome. And then I can switch whatever chord it is. So if I want this to be like a 7th chord, the blue note is the note I'm playing, and these pink notes are other notes. And if I play multiple chords together, you can see as I hold it down, the pressure indicates how large the little ball is here, which in this case automatically sounds like it's controlling filter. Or if I move it up and down, you'll see the slide move up and down here, which like adds in that little bit of noise, like that. Or if I move it left and right, you can see it does a pitch bend. Like that. So this is actually really useful for kind of seeing what's going on here. And if we're using the smart chords, we could have this be a 7th chord, and this be like a 6th chord, and this be a 9th chord, and you can just like play around with it and get some like pretty crazy chords out of it just by playing one note at a time. You get some very like Vangelis, Blade Runner soundtrack kind of chords out of it pretty quick. So this just automatically plays the chords. So it's just gonna be whatever notes, and starts with just the triad for all of these. So whatever you play, it's gonna play the triad of that note. But I can't control other than that. Like if I do the pitch bend, it does pitch bends all 3 of them at the same time together. But I can't do anything like on those individual notes. It's basically like it's just automatically doing chords for me if I have this on. And then if I have this turned off, if I actually play the chord individually with like 3 notes, I could move each one individually. if you wanted to. But in the smart chords mode, you can't really. I've considered grabbing more of their stuff. I think I'm still a little skeptical about some of the things they're making right now. But I definitely would love to try it out. Maybe if there's a demo version, I'll download the demo and try it on stream or something. All right, so I feel like I'm starting to kind of get my head around this. There's also a strum mode, which I think probably will sound really cool. It'll probably sound better on like a plucky kind of sound. That's kind of cool. Turn this way up. That's cool. So I play one note, plays through them. I like the strum mode. There's some really cool things about the software. I think there's an automatic inversion. Let's go back to, let's find another weird chord one. I kind of like that. All right, I can work with that. That can be a thing. Let's toss a kick drum in here. See what happens. I just want to make sure my mic is still working. Yeah. I got a weird message thing going on. Testing, check 1, 2. Am I still here? Okay, just making sure. Does panning really cause phasing issues? It could, I guess. I don't know. I feel like when people are talking about phasing or phasing issues or being worried about phasing, I feel like a lot of times they're really kind of splitting hairs, and it's really like that's not really what the issue is with whatever it is they're making. So I feel like, yeah, if you had two guitar layers that were recorded at the same time, but there's a little bit of latency with one another, like that might cause a little bit of weird phasing issues. And if you had them panned separately, honestly, I don't think panning would be the causing of the phasing issues normally. I think there's other things that cause panning or cause phasing issues, and it might be more of an issue when you have multiple layers that are panned kind of separate that are similar sounds. But panning, at least in a general sense, is not really going to be causing a lot of phasing issues, I don't think. I could be wrong about that, but that's usually not the issue. That's usually not what's causing the phasing. So you want to, Jeff, you want to use an LFO to basically be your sidechain instead of the compressor to do your ducking. You can totally do that. There's a lot of different ways to do that. One way would be, for example, using the auto pan. So we'll try with this guy as an example. Our pad sound here. If you were to use the auto filter, auto pan. So the auto pan is going to pan things left and right. So you hear it going back and forth. However, if we take the phase of the auto pan and we set this down to 0%, because technically what's happening here is it's not panning it back and forth, it's adjusting the volume up and down for your left and right separately. But if we set our phase to be 0%, instead of adjusting volume left and right separately, it's adjusting left and right at the same time, which creates this rhythmic sound, which is really fun for sound design. But if you wanted to use it as a fake sidechain, you could sync this to the grid on, say, quarter notes. And you want to adjust your offset here so it's going down first. So as you can see here, actually probably something like that. So it's already down first. And that way, it'll sound like it's sidechained. It's not like a sidechain, even though it's actually not. And then you could tweak it if you wanted to. You could make, you could do like a triangle with it. You could just a shape to make it more kind of curvy. Adjust my offset a little more. You can adjust the amount here to make it. sounds pretty good like that. I don't mind that. But yeah, you can use the auto pan to essentially pretend sidechain, and you can do different things about it with it. Although one of the things I do really like about the sidechain, using just a regular compressor sidechain, is that if I change up the rhythm, say I add like an extra kick drum right here, the sidechain will respond to it live in real time. So that's one of the added benefits of doing the sidechain through the compressor, is if the kick drum changes, the rhythm that you're sidechaining from changes, then it goes with it, and it helps make things sync up nicely. Although you can do some cool stuff with the auto pan. You could automate this to change rates, I guess. So you could occasionally have it. So you can change that around to make different rhythms, which can be kind of cool. Cool, I just made a house music song. So one thing I would like to mention real quick, because I haven't in a while, is if there's anybody hanging out in chat, anybody viewing who has any questions, feel free to toss them in the chat. Right now I'm just kind of making some sounds, but you are more than welcome to ask me any question about any topic related, at least tangentially, to music production. So yeah, so you could do the exact same thing with the LFO. I'm assuming you're talking about the Master Live LFO guy here. Or you could use the third-party plugin LFO tool, which is basic, kind of the same thing, almost the same thing. So in that situation, if you wanted to create a sidechain with this, you would need to combine this with something that will control your volume. The easiest way to do that is going to be the utility device, which has a gain control right here. So you'd hit the map button, map it to the gain. But in this case, it's going to be turning the volume up by 30 decibels and down by 30 decibels, basically, just too much. So over here, we have a minimum and maximum range for where this will go. So if I set this to be 50, it now maxes out at 0. So when I play this guy, it's effectively doing the same thing we just did with the auto pan, except for doing LFO on the gain control. Yeah, the LFO is super handy for all kinds of stuff like this. And of course, we could sync this with the grid. Well, the LFO itself doesn't make any sound. I don't know why I would have popped your ears or anything. So yeah, that would be another way to do this. I think auto pan's a way easier way to do it, or using the compressor is way easier to do it. But if you wanted to use this, oh, you did LFO and then you had to go all the way up to plus 30. Yeah, that would definitely get too loud. So make sure you adjust this to 50% maximum value before you map it or you play any sounds out of it. Yeah, that would definitely, that'll do it. I think you could also use this offset control, but that's not quite as good because if it goes below this amount here, it just maxes out. So I think the better way to do it is adjust it here than there is here. The offset allows you to turn the depth down and then do this. Minus 50% here. This is functionally the same thing, I guess. Where instead of adjusting this one control, you adjust the depth to change how far it goes in either direction, and then the offset to move it up or down to either side. But this is the easy way to do it, because you do not want this going up to plus 30 decibels. Does that make sense? Different ways to do fake sidechains. Should we get a snare in here or something? Do a little clap. That is not the right clap. So Jeanette is asking, why doesn't Ableton load up some samples rather than sample folders? Only the folder is shown. Not quite sure what you mean there, Jeanette. Are you talking about over in the browser somewhere? If you're in like the samples folder? Yeah, I need some more context for what you mean there. go in the plugins here. So third-party samples. So what I end up doing is down here in the places area, I add in my own folders where I have my sample packs and things, and that way I can have access to samples that I have spliced or wherever I want. So you just hit the add folder button here, and then you pick wherever your folder lives. In fact, my sample library is actually not even in here. And then it's going to add it over here into places. And that's the best way to have access to whatever samples you end up using. So whatever samples you've downloaded into your sample library. That way they all just show up right there. All right, anybody got any thoughts or ideas what I should do to this track? I kind of want to keep on exploring and playing around with some more MPE stuff, but I am open to suggestions. This is normally not really the style of music that I end up making, so I guess I should try a bass line or something. I want something MPE. And I can filter by instrument tags. Bass. All right, let's see what I got. Some acid bass. I am soloed on the wrong track. Not what I want. Kind of cool, but I don't really think fits this. It's kind of cool. That one's pretty responsive. That one could work, potentially. These are so interesting. Like they seem a little bit like unpredictable in terms of how they respond to pressure and velocity. Like sometimes it responds the way I think it's going to. Like sometimes it adds in the extra sound there that I don't want. Sometimes it doesn't. I don't know. It's a little weird sometimes. I like that one a lot though. That's okay. Not that one. I'm just gonna try a couple more and see what they sound like. What's up, Van? Yeah, we're mostly playing with the block, trying to figure out all this MPE stuff and what it does and how it works. So I'm trying to make a little bass line. God, sometimes it's so weird. A little bass line to this little thing I got going on. All the sounds except for the drums were made with the block and just kind of screwed around, playing around with some of the block instruments. All right, so I'm gonna play around with this, see what happens. being really strange in terms of how it's responding. That's, I think, probably one of my biggest issues with the software here, is that like the way it responds to different sounds is kind of a little, that's kind of cool. All right, let's try it again. It keeps missing notes, which is driving me crazy, especially on these two. Yeah, there's like a very specific way I need to hit it to get the sound I want out of it. Otherwise, it makes a bunch of other stuff I don't want it to. Yeah, the sensitivity is, feels like a blessing and a curse sometimes when it comes to making this work. I just like can't win with that one note. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna take this. We're gonna duplicate it. And get rid of these notes. And take these guys and just move them down. And I'm curious to see how the MPE responds in here. So we got our slide and we got our pressure. So the pressure is probably what's causing the issues with it. So it's this right here that is like, I think, causing the issues. Should also quantize it because my timing was way off on some of these notes. Yeah, it's the pressure that gets weird. Yeah, a lot of the presets have been doing that, where they're like, for the most part, I'll kind of understand how to play the things I want to play, and then sometimes they're like, I think I hit it for the same amount of pressure and velocity, and then it gets me something different. So I think it's like, you can see that some of these pressure settings are like, they're higher than other ones for no reason. Maybe I just need to get used to playing it. Hey Anton, how you doing? So Bishop, I'm using the Rolly block with the um, Rolly Studio Player, which is the plugin that goes with the block that they kind of like are kind of designed to work together. And I'm mostly just kind of figuring out how the two work together, how MPE really interacts with these plugins, how to really kind of use it. Um, it's a little weird sometimes. I've been noticing. I mean, not trying to talk shit about Rolly and their products, but uh, I get good results out of it. Like this was me just kind of screwing around, just playing with presets, and like it sounds pretty good. I think the sounds sound pretty lush, and I like it. But the behavior and the interaction between the hardware and the uh, software can be a little weird, and I'm still kind of wrapping my head around exactly how to make all those things kind of work together. So Van, there's kind of two ways to use MPE in live in ways that actually work. Number one is use a plugin that is built to respond to MPE, like the Rolly Studio, like this, where it's like it already can receive MPE and work, or to use one of the live devices uh, that already responds to MPE, which is mainly Wavetable and Simpler and Sampler. Um, but you don't have to use those. I mean, you could use any third-party plugin that receives MPE, and I think it would receive MPE from this. But plugins that don't receive MPE, then the MPE obviously doesn't do anything. So yeah, so I do not need to use the Rolly Studio thing or like the Rolly dashboard or anything like that to make the MPE work. It works pretty much automatically. The only thing you need to do really is in your MIDI preferences, make sure MPE is turned on for the input here. But yeah, I think the if you get since you guys missed out the beginning, I can give you my review of the software here. Uh, I'm a little sad by some of the limitations of the plugin. However, the big winners are the smart chord mode and the built-in arpeggiator. These are both great, and I want more of that. And I think the presets are honestly really good. Normally, I don't like using presets or dealing with a lot of presets, but the presets here sound really solid and can be really cool with very minor tweaking. Um, as far as the hardware goes, I'm having a little bit of issues with the touch sensitivity and how things kind of respond. It can be a little iffy sometimes. And then my other big issue that I was talking about earlier is I can only do one thing at a time with this. So right now this is my play mode. But if I switch this is like an XY controller, or this is like a pad guy. There's a bunch of settings in here, but I can only do one thing at a time. So if I want to like tweak these effects, I can turn them on here so I can go those effects. It's in multi-mode. Why is it doing that? Oh, it should look like that. Well, now it's not working, but you can like use XY controllers on effects, but I can't with one block, I can't play notes and play with effects at the same time. So it seems like it's kind of designed to have multiple blocks connected together, and that way I could play notes on one and do effects on the other, and that seems really cool. I just don't want to have to buy two blocks. I just want to have one. It looks like chat died, or there's an issue with chat, so I don't know if you guys responded to me or not, or where you guys are at. I'll give it a second, and usually chat looks like reconnected now. Anton, I do not have the C-board. I wanted to experiment with MPE, and the block was the cheaper way to do it, so I went with the block instead of the C-board. But I've played with the C-board before, and they're super cool. You can do a lot of really fun stuff with it, and it sounds pretty good. I think the key is like a block plus a C-board. That's probably like the magic combination. And that way you can play notes with the block, and then you can do your effects and things, your XY controllers on the keyboard, and that should work out pretty nicely. Yeah, all these sounds are me just kind of experimenting around here, except for the drums. The drums are just the drum rack, but all of the other sounds were sounds that I made using the Rolly Studio Player. I want to clean this up a little bit. It's sounding a little too... That works, I think. What happens if I take these down an octave? That did not work. That's because I'm on MPE mode. Let's switch this to notes. A little too low, I think. Yeah, playing around with some of like the pressure controls and things is kind of a pain. It doesn't do it the way you want it to. I don't know why it's doing that. This one note is driving me crazy. Do that. See, I don't know what's causing that little bit of resonance at the end there. Not sure. So Van, the push does support MPE, but only kind of. There's basically 3 different aspects to MPE. There is the pressure control, which is like the polyphonic aftertouch. There is the slide control, which allows you to like move up and down. And then there's the per note pitch bend, or the polyphonic pitch bend. Those are like the 3 parts of MPE. Push only does the polyphonic aftertouch, it does the polyphonic aftertouch and it does the polyphonic note bend, but it doesn't do the slide. So you can get 2 out of the 3 MPE things out of the push, but only 2 of them. You can't get the 3rd one because it doesn't work like that. Yeah, I'm not going to worry too much about that little bit of resonance there. There's like got to be some like note off something going on, but I'm not concerned about it. But like you'll notice when I play this, if I hit it like that, I don't get it. Sometimes it does it and sometimes it doesn't, and I'm hitting it relatively the same. Like you get so many different sounds off this one note just from playing it different ways. But it can be a little annoying sometimes because sometimes you don't want it to do the like extra little things there. I do that. That's fine. gonna make some cyberpunk music tonight. That's my plan now. We're doing some Blade Runner style sound design. Sweet. Well, I've been online for a few hours now. I do want to make sure that anybody, if you got any questions, now would be the time to toss them in the chat before I wrap it up for the evening. I definitely very much appreciate all you guys showing up. Also, how do you guys like the new time? I'm doing an hour earlier than what I'm normally doing, which I'm digging it so far. So I might keep the schedule like this. Who knows? Also, in other streaming news, I will be out next week, so no streams either Tuesday or Friday. I'm going to be out of town. But let me know if you, number one, have any questions, and number two, if you like the new earlier streaming time, or you want me to go back to the old streaming time, or maybe you just want me to stream 24 hours a day, and I will try my best to accommodate everybody. Yeah, Van, and this is really kind of the big issue I have with the device here, or the device, the plugin. It doesn't give you a lot of visual indication what's going on behind the scenes. Like when I play this note and I move this around, I can see what it's inputting down here, but I can't see where this goes. Like, I'm assuming it's different for different devices. It sounds like here it's kind of like a filter as I move up and down. But from my experiments today, I couldn't find a way for me to either change, number one, see what that slide control is applying to, and number two, change what it's applying to. So that's my biggest complaint right now, and I'm sure there's probably something. I'm gonna read the manual tonight and see if there's a way to figure that out, but that's driving me crazy. I mean, all the MPE gets measured in here in the clip. So like I can see the MPE here for the slide. There's no slide going on. And then originally there was some pressure change here that I deleted, and that didn't fix it either. So I can see all the MP stuff here individually, but that did not lead me to any useful information, because I don't think any of that gets stored in here either. Yeah, none of the MPE gets stored in here. It has its own separate area over here, just down here. So yeah, so I'm gonna poke through the Rolly Studio manual and see if there's some big picture things I'm missing. No, I think it's either a velocity thing or a pressure thing. It's one of those two things is causing it so that when I hit this note, I think it's a velocity thing maybe, even though I thought, so velocity's over here. See, a lot of these have the same velocity though. See what happens if I turn this down. There we go. Yeah, it's a velocity thing. It must be like a very exact velocity that is higher than these guys. I don't know. It's weird because if I give this a lower velocity, it stops doing it. Yeah, there's a little bit of a release thing. Maybe it's note off velocity. It measures that somehow and maps that to something. I don't know. There's secret settings in here that I don't know about that I'm going to try to find, and I will report back next stream or something like that. But that was fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. at the start of the stream, I knew almost nothing about the Rolly block, and now I know slightly more than nothing. So I'm going to keep playing around with it and do some more experiments with it. I'm hoping to figure out a cool, fun way to integrate the block into my regular workflow. Right now, it's hard for me to see it besides doing these kind of like atmospheric sounds, this like kind of pad sounds. It works great. But for writing things like bass lines or melodies, the push really seems to me to be the way to go. Although I'm going to really dive deep into this arpeggiator because I think the arpeggiator here is really, really cool. So yeah, that's going to be it for me for tonight. Thanks to everybody who's watching and enjoyed it. If you did like it, hit the like button, hit any of the buttons. And I will see you guys on Friday for the song feedback stream. Stan was asking about West Coast synth sound with MPE. Are you talking about like West Coast synthesis, like Buchla style synthesis? Or are you talking about like West Coast bass music style synthesis? Because those are two different things. Both of them sound very cool though. See if Stan sticks around for a minute to give me a follow-up. I'm assuming you mean like Buchla style, like a hip-hop lead sound. Yeah, this would be great for that because you get all these nice pitch bend things. Let me pull up a new one. And I did not specifically look for a lead sound kind of thing, but grab an MPE one. We can filter it by arpeggiated, bells, brass, chords. Lead. All right, let's see if we can find a decent one. We're on the wrong track. Yeah, I think that's a great idea for doing this kind of like this kind of lead sounds. Perfect for that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a great idea. Cool. Well, thanks everybody for watching. I will see you guys on Friday for the song feedback stream. Have a good night. Make some music. I'll see y'all later.